Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. Rain poured down from the heavens, cleansing the earth from the sins of the inhabitants. The moon, however, shone brightly between the thick clouds as animals scurried away to find shelter. The sounds of their footsteps were thwarted by the sound of the rain pelted the earth. A lone figure slowly crawled to a large tree and rested against its trunk, hoping to gain little shelter from the rain. Its breathing was hard and slow as the rain soaked its form. The figure grunted in pain as it looked at its arm. The severely scratched appendage hung limply at its side, and the figure groaned before popping it back into place. Its breathing picked up as it rested its head against the tree, looking up at the cloud-covered night sky through the tree's leaves. It then looked down at its knees. Both knees were as scratched as its arm, and only torn pants covered his modesty. The now identified male grabbed his left knee, which was facing in a different direction, and pushed back into place as a loud snapping noise echoed the area. Ah! The groan left his lips and he resumed looking up at the sky. Need to get farther. Still in danger. He surprising thought calmly to himself before using the trunk to get to his feet. He stood shakily on his feet and tried to take a step forward, only for the same knee to give out. The figure grunted as his face slammed into the cold ground. The coolness of the ground cooled down his heated body, which he's grateful for. I think I heard something over here. Well, we crushed his legs so he couldn't have gotten far. Let's just hope he's not dead, or else Ginkai will us. Hearing his pursuers so close, the figure weakly took his body off the ground. Seeing how escaping was pretty much out of his hand, he unsheathed the only weapon on his person. The black blade seemed to absorb the light around it, and the figure grinned at the weapon. There he is. A man called out as 3 men surrounded the figure. Thought you could get away, brat. The same man said with a sinister grin. You have balls to attack the boss like that, but unfortunately this is the end of the road. The large man on the figure's right called out. Now come with us nicely, or I'll tanky break your arms and legs this time. The man in front to the figure said with a wide grin. All 4 men were soaked to the bone, and the figure remained in his spot, his sword still by his side. His head was down, looking down at the equally soaked ground. Not talking, eh? Well then boys, let's complete this pain in the mission. Grab him. The man in front of him commanded. The men nodded and charged at the figure. The figure head snapped up, showing the 3 men his crimson red eyes and elongated canines. His now clawed hand gripped his weapon tightly as red energy swirled around his form. My time is not up. My lord, a creature said as it bowed in front a large form. We have successfully gathered at least 4 of the spirits. The creature heard its master hummed and continued carefully. Though the last spirit is being quite difficult. Go on. Its dark and deep voice echoed around the room, and the creature repressed the urge to shudder. Well, it's not moving from its place. We tried to move it ourselves and even used some of our attacks. The large form growled menacingly, and the creature's eyes widened before it spoke quickly. But no worries, master. The spirit is fine. Thanks to Piedmon-sama we were able to locate it here. Let me see the spirits. The creature nodded quickly. Of course, master. The creature then nodded to a group of ogre-like men. The ogres bowed and quickly left the room. The creature then turned its head back at its master. Shall I go fetch Piedmon? The creature would had finished had a bloody body appeared and fallen in front of its master. The creature yelped and jumped back in fright. It had dark yellow, almost orange tuft of hair, and its clothing was almost in rags and out body. Not to mention there was blood in almost every place on its body. He carefully walked up to it and poked it. Hearing a small groan, the creature stared wide-eyed at the body. Just then an object appeared and stabbed in the ground next the body. The group of ogres returned with 5 floating objects, however the 5th one was lodged into a boulder which 2 ogres had to carry. They looked at the body in confusion before bowing and carefully dropping 4 spirits in their master's huge hand. The last one was laid down in front of him. The creature looked up from the body. "Master, he's alive but barely. What do you want to do with him?" Curiosity struck one of the ogres who reached for the weapon. He grabbed the hilt only to be completely covered in fire. The ogre screamed in pain as him and his brothers tried to put the fire, but it was all for nothing as he eventually burst into data. The inhabitants of the room looked at the spot where the ogre once stood and then at the body. "Interesting," the large figure said, and its subordinates looked at it in confusion. Thea heard a strange noise and looked over to the lodge spirit. Its rock-like tomb began to crack until the spirit broke free and floated in the air. Before anybody could do anything, it was quickly absorbed into the body's form. A warrior of the dark replaced the body's form until it returned to the same bloody body. So a new host has been chosen. Interesting indeed, it said with a sinister grin before it cleared its throat. "Bring this body to Piedmon and have it healed." "Master?" the creature asked before a wave of intent flooded the area. The creature shook in fear and nodded quickly. Oh, of course, Master. At once. And the weapon. Leave it. It quickly said, and the creature and ogres grabbed the body. They bowed quickly and left the room, leaving their master alone with the cursed weapon and his thoughts. What a strange turn of events. The same grin was on its face as it gripped the 4 spirits in its large paw tightly. Now it's time for their rebirth. Its closed paw shined brightly and its sinister laugh echoed around the area. "Bump. Me bored. Brr bump. Well then find something to do, troll face. Brr bump brr bump. What's that tuna fish? Brr bump brr bump brr bump. Ah, guys, I think he's whacking up." Someone scoffed. "No way, clown said he awake in a month." Well yes, technically someone with his injuries should be dead. He's lucky Cherubimon Sama deemed him as important. An abnormally high squeaky voice chirped up. He felt someone touch his cheek before rubbing them. "He's very handsome too. I wonder how he got these marks." The hands moved away from his face before the same squeaky voice from earlier spoke up. "His body is quite amazing, really. It's practically healing itself twice as fast than our own regeneration factor. Such a shame. His body would have been great to experiment on." Experiment. His body thrashed as the occupants of the room tried to calm him down. "No, never again." Red energy were like wisp around his form as his eyes snapped open, showing them angry crimson orbs. He roared and blasted those around his bed away. He didn't feel his weapon and panicked seeing the weird creatures he blasted away getting back up. He quickly got out of the bed and made a run for it. The hallway was like a long corridor, but he didn't care. He just wanted his weapon. Made a few twists and turns, running into more strange creatures each time. Most of them were different than the rest and all looked at him in fear. Eventually his weak body gave out on him and he landed in a large and dark room. A large throne was seated by the entrance and on it was an equally large creature, the largest he's seen so far. In front of this creature was his weapon, the blade still stabbed into the ground. "Well, look who we have here. Impressive, you've woken earlier than expected." The large creature chuckled out, its eyes gazed darkly on his own now azure orbs. He felt the energy leave him and quickly stumbled to the ground. He grunted in pain before slowly getting back to his feet and stumbled over to his weapon. Though your body is against it, you still walk forward through sheer willpower. It looked at the weapon. You must care a lot for this weaponry. But he ignored it and slowly grabbed the hilt and easily ripped it out of the ground, showing the large figure its obsidian black blade. He used it as a walking stick for now to keep upright. By now, I'm sure you'll wonder who am I and where you are. It grinned and he slowly nodded. I am the great Lord Cherubimon, the one who saved your life, and you are within my castle of the dark region. Cherubimon said proudly before peering down at him. Now who are you? He just looked at Cherubimon with blank and pained eyes. Cherubimon matched his gaze and the two began a silent eye battle. Cherubimon just grinned before sitting back on his throne. Now aren't you a wonder? My lord, if I may. A clown-like creature asked as it and more four creatures entered the throne room. Its squeaky voice brought him back to the room where the clown said something about experiments. He lunged at the clown with a cry and swung his weapon. The clown merely looked at him with an amused smirk before jumping over him. My, he seems very excited. The clown laughed out as it dodged sloppy swing after sloppy swing before backhanding him and making the weapon drop from his hands. Now if you're quite done. Don't want you agitating your wounds now, do we? He gritted his teeth at the clown before grabbing his bandaged arm in pain and looking down at the ground. The clown took this as a surrender and smiled. Good. Now back to what I was going to say. Oh. The injuries lucky here had ranged from cuts to broken bones to torn muscle to even damage to the brain. The creatures of the room looked at him in either amazement or interest. Yes indeed. The clown droned on. Lucky is quite the specimen. It giggled and placed its hands behind its back. I'm surprised he's still conscious. He glared at the clown who only smiled back at him. Now due to personal experience, he is human but a strange one. Cherubimon raised an eyebrow and looked at him. A human now. He turned his glare the large creature who just chuckled at him. These creatures were toying with him and he didn't like one bit. He was getting ready to charge again, but one of the creatures called out to him. So you've heard of Digimons then? It was female if the two glorious lumps on her chest were any indicating. She was indeed a petite beauty that looked like she came up to his chin. He found himself staring and turned gazed while shaking his head. Digimon. I see, so you are not educated on my kind. Cherubimon said in an almost mocking tone which he glared harshly at. Well, I'll let my subjects explain that to you. Just know that now you have a power within you. An ancient and powerful power that only you can control with my help, of course. The large Digimon then swung its large arm at the four Digimons. And these four are now your companions. Grum, the reincarnation of Ancient Volcamon. Grum huffed in annoyance and crossed his arms. Arbormon, the reincarnation of Ancient Torianmon, and Mercurymon, the reincarnation of Ancient Wisemon. Both Digimons just gave him a bored look. Well, Arbormon did, but you get my point. He then looked at the last Digimon who looked at him in wonder and interest. And lastly Ranamon, the reincarnation of Ancient Mamayamon. He then looked back up at the large Digimon whose grin never left its face. You are a very interesting character for the short time that you were here. Do my bidding and I'll make sure your name is well known to the digital. It'll strike fear in those whom will hear it. Join me and you'll be a legend for the elderly to tell the new generation. So what say you? The room was quiet as the large Digimon waited surprisingly patiently for its answer. He looked at the Digimon on the throne and nodded slowly and seemingly to himself. His azure orbs looked in its white ones. Uzumaki Naruto. His voice was gruff and deep, almost animistic, and sent shivers down a few of their spines. He got on one knee and laid his weapon on the side, bowing in front of Cherubimon, whose grin seemed to almost split his face as his laugh rumbled through the room. Excellent. How is he? He heard a man cough out, his voice raspy and sickly. He heard someone else clear his throat. Well, his body finally stabilized, but we have to see if his body will actually accept the DNA. DNA. Stabilize. He tried to open his eyes but found that his body wasn't responding. The first voice from earlier spoke with a hoarse chuckle. An action that he immediately grew to hated. He did survive the first 3 and perfectly, may I add. Apply an electric stimulant and see if that can speed up the process. He heard someone walk up and touch his prison. Soon his body shall be complete. Are you sure about the stimulant, my lord? What if it'll overcharge his heart? He tried to move again, hoping to figure out what was going on, but all he got was a twitch of the finger. Oh, he'll survive. After all, the voice seemed to be increasing softer, as if it wasn't even in the room anymore. He is an Uzumaki. Dash opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. The moonlight pelted one of the many balconies of Cherubimon's castle in its glow. Naruto sat at the edge, carefully cleaning his weapon with a cloth. He stopped wiping and grabbed the hilt. He held it up high in the air, watching as it seemingly absorbed the moonlight. It was a double-edged broadsword, very rare in the parts where he came from. The blade was in dark obsidian with purple tribal rune designs. The guard was slightly curved and in the middle was a purple jewel. All in all, the sword was very intimidating, and Naruto brought back down to finish cleaning it. His ears picked up footsteps as a small figure came into the room. Ranamon stared at Naruto as he just sat there cleaning his sword. She walked a little closer and cleared her throat, hoping to get his attention. He didn't move or stop, and Ranamon bristled in anger at being ignored. Y'all is gonna rot right there, not moving and all. No reply. She huffed and walked so she was in touching distance. Did you hear me? She went to go touch his shoulder but stopped as he slowly turned his head. She repressed a shiver as she gazed into his blank blue eyes. What do you want? His voice was sharp and firm, but also quiet, as if talking was a rare occasion for him. Ranamon actually shivered before clearing her throat again. Well, Cherubimon wants to see us, all of us. Something, 'bout a mission. She said, and Naruto's eyes lingered on her for a few seconds before he turned back to look at the moon. Ranamon suppressed a yell until he slowly stood up. He placed his sword on its equally black sheath on his back and walked towards the entrance. Their shoulders bumped lightly and Ranamon jumped back with a yelp, as if she was shocked. Naruto, as if not feeling anything, quietly and quickly left the room, leaving Ranamon to look at the spot where he was. What was that? She whispered to herself before shaking out of her trance and quickly leaving the room to follow behind her mysterious companion. She made it to the throne room and took her place by Mercurimon's side, but kept on giving side glances at the only non-Digimon there. Good, now that we all are here, it's time to give you all your main mission. Piedmon stood at his master's side, an ever-present smirk on his face. Mission? Arbormon asked, and Cherubimon chuckled. Yes, this world is beginning to weaken as it has no one to rule it. Of course I'm the only capable ruler, but it isn't without difficulty. He laid back on his throne and Piedmon faced him with a confused expression. With all respect, my lord, you are clearly one of the strongest megas in the digital world. I'm sure no one is that stupid to oppose you. Cherubimon chuckled again. Ah yes, but you forgot what group I was a part of. I'm sure those angels wouldn't take too kindly being under my rule. He then focused back the 5 in front of him. Your mission is collect fractal codes. With those codes I can steadily increase my power, that of higher status than Seraphimon and Ophanamon combine. Fractal codes, how the hell we get them? Grum asked, and Cherubimon just grinned. By total destruction, of course. Seraphimon's castle. It seems he has started. A male voice said, and he stood up from his seat. So it seems. His female companion said with a sad sigh. I guess it's time. The male nodded and gently placed a hand on her shoulders. No fear, Ophanamon-chan. I have faith in the remaining spirits. He tried to say cheerfully as he motioned to the remaining 5 legendary spirits. We just need to find the chosen souls to bond with each spirit. It won't be easy, Seraphimon-kun. To contact the chosen ones requires a great deal of power. Power that I don't have right now, and from what we sense, Cherubimon is not going to wait any moment longer. She then stood up and picked up the spirit of fire. I understand, Seraphimon said softly as he walked next to her. However, I do fear that the longer we wait, the more power Cherubimon will gain in the process. He looked out of his opened windows as he fists clenched. Ophanamon saw the action and placed a comforting hand on the male Digimon's shoulder. There's more to it than just Cherubimon gaining power, isn't it? Seraphimon sighed. Our former comrade has gained an ally of power that I can't even fathom. Even from here you can sense its malicious intent. I haven't even felt something so evil since Looseman. Ophanamon whispered, and Seraphimon chuckled sadly. Whoever this power belongs to must be equal to Looseman, and I fear that's not all the power we are feeling. Ophanamon removed her hand in shock and took a step back from the window. So you see why the chosen ones is an urgent matter. We simply don't have time to wait any longer. He said almost pleadingly. You don't understand, Seraphimon-kun. The power I need requires time and patience. If I had all that power at once, we probably wouldn't be worrying about Cherubimon. She said a little louder as frustration was getting to her. And of that malicious intent. Do you think waiting would give you the power to defeat whoever that was? Seraphimon turned to look at her as Ophanamon grew quiet. If the warriors could stop and seal away Looseman once, I'm sure they can do it twice to this clone of his. Ophanamon shook her head as a frown appeared on her face. It's true, the warriors did in fact defeat Looseman, but at the cost of their own lives. These are nothing but children. Seraphimon turned so his back was facing her as he stared out the window. A harsh chuckle escaped his throat. Oh, I believe I can see where you stand on this matter. Ophanamon was taken back by his tone and took a step back. You are willing to let digital world, our home and the homes of millions of Digimons, crumble because of your fear. My fear. Ophanamon shot back. My fear of what? Not wanting to be scattered data in a poor attempt to stop Cherubimon. Or how about not wanting a bunch of children to get it in the process? These children are not Digimon, they can't just be reborn and start their life cycle over again. You're underestimating their power. No, you're overestimating their power. I'll do what I have to do to protect this world. Even if they die, they'll be heroes in their attempts and we'll just find more. Earth is full of them. Seraphimon turned back around and unfortunately couldn't see Ophanamon's horror-stricken face behind her mask. Why you think these children are extendable? Ophanamon was disgusted at her fellow holy Digimon. What the hell happened to you? Normally a conserved Digimon like Ophanamon wouldn't curse, even under stressful situations, but Seraphimon was stepping over a line. Nothing. I'm just thinking of the greater good for the digital world, and you should too. We were created and picked to make sure this world lives on in safety. We already lost one of our own to darkness. As a protector of this world, I will not let hundreds of Digimon fall to the same darkness, lest we lose our world entirely. Come, Ranamon-chan, you have to see my point in this. He tried to reach for her hand, but the angel slapped his hand away. Seraphimon growled behind his mask and took a threatening step forward. Either you'll do it, or I will. And trust me, you are not going to like what I do, little angel. He growled out before clearing his throat. Ranamon balled her hands into fists. Fine. She practically spat out, they'll be here within a year and that's the earliest I can do. She then turned to stomp out of the door. See. Now was that so hard? It took all the goodness and holy influences in her body not to turn around and deck the, supposedly holy, Digimon in the face. If only they knew. She thought to herself as tears escaped through her mask and down her cheeks. What will become of this world in the future? She whispered as she walked out of Seraphimon's castle. What will become of us? A few weeks later. Run! A young in-training Digimon screamed before it was stepped on by a grinning troll. Grum laughed and threw his hammer at another poor Digimon. Both data were absorbed into his form and his laughter got louder. Man, best mission ever, he said with a grin. Arborman just huffed at the troll while driving a rookie into an already collapsed market stand. The wooden Digimon ducked under a sneak attack before shooting seed-like pellets at the Digimon. The offending Digimon looked at the seeds in confusion before it promptly blew him up. I'll have to admit, this is sure entertainin', he said, and he brushed any debris from his body. How 'bout ye, Mercurymon? He asked the mirror-like Digimon who was leaning against a broken pillar. If this is how Lord Cherubimon wishes to use thine powers for, thy haveth no problems. Mercurymon smirked before looking over at their only female companion. And thou thoughts, Ranamon? The water beauty just huffed and crossed her arms. Couldn't really get anything since Trollface over here took mostly everyone. Hey, you know trying. Besides, me better than you anyways. Grum shot back while surveying the area. Me thinks we done here. Ranamon ignored his jab and settled on glaring at the Earth Digimon. The other two nodded at the troll conclusion and moved to walk out of the village when a figure blocked their path. He gave the four Digimon calculating looks before slowly passing them towards the direction of the ruined village. Naruto-san, thy thinks nigh of any survivors surviving. Mercurymon tried to say, but the blonde human ignored him completely. Naruto reached behind him and grabbed the hilt of his sword while kicking a particular piece of slab over. The four Digimons heard whimpering and saw an injured Agumon looking at all of them with fear, especially at Naruto. Naruto just gave the Digimon a blank stare as he slowly unsheathed his sword. PP please DD don't me. It whimpered out, yet Naruto's facial expression didn't change in the slightest. Not another sound was made as Naruto quickly drove his sword in between the Digimon's eyes, ending its life quickly. Its data was absorbed into his form and the emotionless human sheathed sword and began towards the group. Missed one, he said with no emotion at all, shocking his teammates at his blank tone before disappearing into the forest area. Dash opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. Excellent job, Naruto-kun. A man with a lab coat and glasses praised before writing something down on his clipboard. And not a single scratch present on your body. The trials are going better than expected. Naruto just stared at the man, no emotion show on his face. Bloody bodies surrounded his form as he dropped the bloody kunai in his hand. It was like this every week. They'll take him out of his prison and have him fight to death against other people. Sometimes they'll give him a weapon and other times, he had to using his bare fists and that was never easy. There was no reward for his victories. There was no end. Only pain, and each time the pain got worse. He tried fighting against them, but then they made that pain unbearable. He tried not fighting at all and they got angry and frustrated. Then came the pain again. He had no choice but to do as they say. Each day he wished for his death and to be free of this living hell. To be with her again. However, Naruto knew they wouldn't him. He was an asset in their eyes. Their living weapon. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. Ranamon huffed in annoyance. The water fairy was looking for her quiet teammate yet again, even going as far as asking Grum for help. Which the troll just grunted and walked away. It's been a few weeks since the start of their mission and her curiosity of their only human teammate grew. The man was barely around even for mission briefings, and when he was, it's like he's not even there. She hasn't even seen him do full conversation with anybody, not even Cherubimon, who has taken great interest in him. The only person he seemed to show any type of emotion to was Piedmon, but it was always anger, and Ranamon sure as hell could feel it. She closed her eyes and sighed again in annoyance. Where the hell does this guy hides anyways? The castle is only so big, and I checked everywhere. She was so entrapped in her thought that she collided with a hard object and fell back on her. Watch the way you're going. She finally glared up at the figure. Thou's mouth is so unladylike. Mercurymon smirked down at her before offering a hand, which Ranamon just swatted away. Thou is just rude in general. Oh, shut up, glass face. She snapped back before getting back on her feet and brushing away any dirt on her form. Now just stay out of my way. She quickly stopped as an idea passed in her head. Wait, you haven't seen Naruto, have you? The glass-like Digimon's smirked increased, at which Ranamon glared. Oh, thou seem'st to fancy the mysterious human. Ranamon rolled her eyes and placed her hands at her hips. Just answer the question. Mercurymon chuckled at her response and pointed a thumb behind him. Thy last him on the balcony cleaning that sword of his. Ranamon resisted the urge to slap her forehead. That's the one place she skimmed over. Of course. She nodded to the Digimon before walking down the corridor. Mercurymon looked at her retreating form before absorbing into the wall. Ranamon walked into the room and sure enough Naruto was sitting down watching the sunset, his sword laid on his lap. She felt a pressure of some sort and knew that he felt her in here. She slowly walked behind him and looked out at the sun. Yeah, no, I never looked at the sun as it sets. It's really beautiful. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. Naruto felt her presence and sighed mentally in annoyance. It's bad enough that he had to do these pointless missions, now he has his own personal stalker. Again. He heard her shuffle closer and the scent of the ocean assaulted his nose. Yeah, no, I never looked at the sun as it sets. It's really beautiful. Naruto didn't respond back, not feeling like conversating. He just hoped she'll get the message and leave him alone. But it seemed Ranamon didn't get the memo and moved closer to him. Do y'all mind if I sat down? He really wanted to say no and enjoy his time of peace and quiet, but his body scooted over to the side a bit. Ranamon took this as an invitation to sit and she took it. The two sat in silence with Naruto staring at the retreating sky and Ranamon switching between looking at Naruto or his sword. So it's been a few weeks since we became companions, she tried to say as he remained silent, and I have a feeling we are going to be stuck with each other for a long time. So why don't we get to know each a little bit more? The water fairy Digimon said as she tried to see any emotions on Naruto's face. He stayed quiet as if believing she wasn't there. Ranamon sat quietly but was beginning to become impatient. A few seconds later the fairy stood up with anger. Fine. Y'all want to sit there and be lonely, then be lonely. I'm tired of trying. She left the room in rage, leaving a still unresponsive Naruto. The silent blonde glanced to where she was sitting at before continuing his gaze at the retreating sun. My, that's not a way to gain friends. A deep and feral voice called out from Naruto's head. The blonde didn't respond and the voice chuckled darkly. Come now, you can't get rid of me, so you might as well talk to me. Naruto closed his eyes and took in a deep calming breath. The voice merely continued, we haven't spoken years, young one. Not since we bonded. Shut up. Naruto thought coldly and sharply. The voice chuckled again before quieting down till it vanished. Naruto took a few deep breaths before standing and leaving the room. His sword, ever present on his back, glowed a bit before stopping. He. Come on, Pinhead. It's just snow, not lava. A girlish voice called out to him. The usually flowery meadow was covered in the cold white powder as she ran out to the middle of the small field. We barely get snow here. Look at this as a blessing. She giggled out before falling back into the soft and cold snow. I'm not the one for the snow. He grumbled out quietly, yet she heard him clearly. Oh, stop moping and come make a snow angel with me. I see people in the north do it a lot. She called over before a thought popped in his mind. He saw that she was preoccupied with her snow angel before reaching down and grabbing a handful of snow. He quickly molded the snow into a shape of a ball before quickly hiding it behind his back. All right, I'm coming over, he said with a grin before throwing the snowball at her unprepared body. She yelped before dodging the ball and he laughed at her. Oh, come on now, don't tell me you're afraid of a little snow. She pouted before tackling him to ground. He landed back with a grunt and a smile formed on her face before she quickly grabbed some snow and dumped it on his face. Ha! That'll teach ya. He shook the snow away and she softly connected her lips to his. They slowly separated and she nuzzled into his jacket. I love you. Dash opening parenthesis closing parenthesis dash. Naruto quickly sat up in cold sweat, his heart racing and his breathing picked up. He looked around his dark room before feeling the spot on the bed next to him. He stared at that spot what seemed to be about a few hours but was only a couple of minutes. A wet drop fell on the space and the blonde looked up at the roof but saw no leakage. He then felt his own face. Tears. Naruto wiped it away and stood up from his bed. He walked over to his single window and looked at the moon. Stop it, silly. You're getting ramen everywhere. She scolded and he just chuckled. Sorry, but you know how I feel about ramen. He rubbed the back of his head in slight embarrassment as she gave him a look. I swear it's like you love that food more than you love me. She pouted and crossed her arms. He gently grabbed her and placed her on his lap. That's far from being true. While ramen is a good snack, I can't cuddle it, I can't kiss it, and I can't show it my love, he said while placing a soft kiss on her cheek and she relaxed into his lap. Oh, look who's a smooth operator, she said with a chuckle before looking up at the moon from their open window as frown came to her beautiful face. I don't want tomorrow to come, she whispered and he tightly wrapped his arm around her. It's something that has to be done. Just promise me one thing. He too glanced at the large orb in the sky. All his training, all their hard work had finally paid off. What? she said after a moment of silence and sniffed as she tried to hide her tears within his shirt. He just held her tighter, his eyes never leaving the moon, almost like her was having a silent battle with it. Promise me that you won't do anything heroic. Digital world. A year later. Man, I'm hungry and tried. We all are, JP. Yeah, well, you guys are not light. Carrying you guys like that makes a man hungry. We didn't choose which spirits have wings and which don't. Zoe Orimoto sighed at the childish banter for what seemed like the fifth time in the last few minutes. She fixed her hair before standing up and wiping any dirt that seemed to have clung onto her blue jean shorts. Out of all the punishments I deserve, I get stuck with prideful idiots. She thought mentally before clearing her throat loudly. Well, you guys shut up already. Arguing is not going to get us to the forest terminal any faster. She said sternly and got two apologies and one grunt. Zoe is right anyways. Takuya Kanbara said as he walked towards the front, not hearing the "I'm always right" comment from the blonde girl. Now Bokuman, do you know where to go from, wherever we are? Their Digimon companion and guide huffed and scratched his head. With the mountain gone, no thanks to Grum, I sort of lost my bearings. The small white Digimon turned multiple times before pointing in a certain direction. I believe we should go straight that way. Would have been easier if Bug Boy had landed us in a better place. Came the snide remark from the usually quiet Koji Minamoto. JP Shibayama growled at the comment before walking up to Koji's face. Mind saying that to my face, punk. Hey now JP. I'm sure Koji didn't mean it in a, well, mean way. Takuya said with an awkward chuckle. Right Koji. He looked expectantly at the ebony-haired male. Koji just scoffed and brushed shoulders with JP before walking in the direction Bokuman pointed in. JP growled again at the move, but a hand on the shoulders from Zoe made him stop. Prick. He grumbled out and walked in the same direction. Oh boy, those two are definitely not getting along. Takuya said as he rubbed the back of his head. Tommy Hime, the youngest of the group, merely sighed in annoyance. Just hope they'll get along soon. Cherubiman's castle. Dining room. Hey. More food. Grum commanded through a full mouth to some lesser Digimon servants. They quickly bowed and left the room for the kitchen just as Ranamon, Mercurymon and Arbormon entered. I see ye's mission went successful. Arbormon laughed as he sat down next to the troll who just grunted a response. Big whoop. He ate a mountain for it fractal code, just like he does with almost everything else. Ranamon said with an eye roll as she sat down in her seat. And can't Jarl eat like Jarl got some sort of manners? Grum swallowed the food that was in his mouth. Me thinks you know talk. He took another bite. At least me do something useful. Yeah, well, at least I got a proper education, ya stupid troll. She bit back and the troll shrugged his shoulders and continued eating as the Digimon servants came back with more food. Mercurymon chuckled at the scene before looking around. Ah, where may our teammate be? Surely he'll miss dinner. That is if Grum doesn't eat it all. Arbormon said, pointing at their feeding teammate. Besides Mercurymon, you know the lad never joins us for dinner. Ye know, I think the water lass over here should bring the quiet lad his food. He chuckled before dodging a thrown piece of food from the water lass herself. Please, that'll be a waste of ma time. She huffed out and crossed her arms. Not like we even see him anyways. Sounds like someone is a little depressed. I could always get Lady Deverman. Ranamon scoffed and rolled her eyes. Sure, like that horny bitch could get to him. she said dismissively and called a servant over. I would like Naruto's plate. Of course, Lady Ranamon, the servant said quickly before disappearing. Well, look who's finally growing up, Arborman said as he dodged another piece of food. Come now, don't throw ye's food. Grum, here, could have eaten that. The Earth Digimon merely grunted at hearing names as he practically inhaled the food. Shut up, you talking tree. Ranamon bit back and Mercurymon chuckled. Now, pretty ladies shouldn't be so rough. This prompted a middle finger from the water fairy herself. Cherubimon's castle, the balconies. It was quiet and still as it should be. His arms and hands were relaxed in his lap as his legs were crossed and his eyes closed. Slow and quiet deep breaths came from his body as his chest slowly rise and fall. His trusty weapon laid in front of him with the moonlight gently giving the naturally dark room some light. Very good, but you need to breathe more calmly. Remember, your breaths tell your thoughts. He took a deep breath as he visualized a green meadow filled with exotic flowers. So like this, he said as he took a breath in. She giggled before placing her hand on his chest. Your breathing must relax your heart, she said, and he opened his eyes to look at her in confusion. Relax my heart. He let the breath go before taking in another one. He visualized the beautiful girl laughing at him. Don't take it literal, but it's almost like you're dying because you feel so at peace with yourself. He snapped, his eyes opened, and the girl in the meadow disappeared. The scent of the ocean wafted through his nostrils as well as the scent of food. You didn't come to dinner again, and we were lucky enough to save you some food before the troll would have ate it all. Ranamon softly said as she placed the food down. And look, I know I haven't made much attempts to get to know you, even though you're never here. She thought to herself. But if you need anything, I just around the corner. Naruto remained silent and Ranamon sighed sadly to herself. Didn't really expect much, she whispered as she made her way out. Thank you. It was quiet, almost silent, but she heard him. A small smile crawled up to her face. You're welcome, she said quietly before leaving the room, leaving the blonde to himself. Next day. Now isn't this a pleasant surprise? Cherubimon grinned at and Piedmon laughed at his master's side. It is, my lord. Now what can we do for you, Lucky? It's not every day you're out of that little prison. Naruto clenched his fist and refused the urge to behead the clown. Now back at his full strength, the blonde was more than certain he could face off against the mega-level Digimon. Piedmon eyed his reaction as a face-splitting grin formed on his face. Of course, you wish to take part in my little experiment. A specimen like yourself is quite the medical wonder. The clown, while he loves to pull jokes and prank everyone, especially loves to poke around the silent blonde. Something about it just bring the clown mental joy. Naruto bared his teeth at the clown and reached behind his back for his sword. Oh, he'll show that clown something to laugh at. Cherubimon just grinned at the interaction before clearing his throat, getting the attention of the two occupants. Now Piedmon, I suggest leaving the young one alone. I rather not have my throne destroyed. Piedmon bowed, his grin still plastered on his face, much to the ire of Naruto. Of course, my lord, it's just all in good fun, mostly. Cherubimon focused back down at Naruto. Now what can I do for you, young one? Naruto just stared up at the beast intently and Cherubimon let out a chuckle. I know exactly what you want, and I have a little mission that'll benefit the both of us. Grum gave me his report, and it seems our dear Ranamon has not only remained hidden from us, she's also got some help. Naruto looked almost bored and grunted at her name. He remembered her and the other guy, he couldn't be bothered with remembering. He think it was Ceramon, or something like that. All he did know was that he put up a good fight. In fact, she got help in the form of 5 other children to hold the legendary warriors. Quite sneaky of her actually. Ah, but you care little for this backstory. Freedom and excitement is what you want. Naruto raised an eyebrow, his interest now peaked. Those children, if left to their own devices, could in fact be a thorn to my side. Naruto tilted his head to the side before unsheathing his sword. Cherubimon chuckled. Now where would the fun be if they were so early in their quest? No, I want a little entertainment. Your mission, young one, is quite simple. And I expect no failures from you. Outside of Gotsuman village. See, I told you we were on the right track. Zoe said as she pointed at the sign towards the next village. No one never doubted you. Takuya deadpanned before he took a big sigh. How much longer to the next village anyway? I'm starting to get tired. Tell us something we don't know. JP shot back before his stomach let its problem be known. Man, if I don't get food soon, I'm sure to go crazy. Little too late for that. Zoe said under breath before brushing another low-hanging leaf from her face. What I wouldn't give for a hot spring. She sighed sadly and JP grinned pervertedly. I second that, Zoe-chan. She just rolled her eyes at the older male. I wonder if Koji is alright. Tommy said, and Takuya placed his hands behind his head. I'm sure he's fine, besides he chose to ran off himself. The group continued to walk, not noticing the pair of blue eyes that followed before they disappeared. A little later, Gotsuman village. Lobomon growled as he summoned light energy into his hand. Stay still for once, howling laser. A beam of light shot at the grinning troll, who quickly dodged the attack. Is that it? Grum grinned out and summoned his hammer. Man, you guys no fun. Seismic sledge. The hammer made contact with the ground, forming large crevices and cracks, causing the warrior of light to jump back several times. Lobomon quickly raised his lightsaber and stopped hammer from almost colliding with his face. Me have to say, you strongest of group. Grum said as he tried to push his hammer. Lobomon gritted his teeth before quickly raising his hand to deliver a beam of light to the troll's face. The beam of light sent the troll back, allowing for the warrior of light to catch a breather. That was until a flying hammer slammed into his back, sending the Digimon crashing to the ground. Lobomon groaned. Me no like beam of light. Grum said with a frown as he summoned back his hammer, and Lobomon slowly got up from the ground. Now spirit is mine, he yelled as he charged. Not so fast, Pyro Tornado. Wah! A fire-powered kick made its way to the troll's face, sending him flying into a boulder. Lobomon looked to see his group appear, and the warrior gritted his teeth in frustration. It looked like you need some help. Agunamon said with a cheeky grin and offered a hand. Now what have we learned from running off? Kazemon said almost sarcastically as she placed a hand on her hip. Guys, I don't think we're done here. Beat called out, and not a moment later a rock-hard fist collided with his face and grabbed his leg before throwing him into Agunamon. Both Digimon felled with twin groans as the new Digimon chuckled. Agunamon, beat. Kazemon called before she conjured wind at her fingertips and flicked it at the new Digimon. Hurricane waves. The Digimon grinned and stretched out its arm while spinning, creating a mini tornado around his form. Quagmire twist. The wind wisps disappeared around his form before the tornado quickly got closer and revealed 2 fists that landed to both Kazemon and Kumamon. The Digimon stopped spinning and let out a loud laugh. Man, me don't use this form but today special. On a boulder. A lone figure looked at the fight with bored eyes. Its weapon laid in between the figure legs as it watched Grum, now his beast from Gigasman, give the group a pounding. Though there was one person he was truly focused on. She dodged a strike the beast and tried to give a punch of her own. There's something about her that reminded the blonde of something, but he couldn't put his finger on it. In fact, he was beginning to get frustrated and slowly got up while placing the sword on his shoulder. It seemed the wolf-looking Digimon got an upgrade in the form of a beast spirit reminding Naruto of his own. But that's a story for another time. It looked to be that Gigasman was fighting a slowly losing battle and let out an attack in a last-ditch effort that the fairy Digimon took the brunt of to protect her teammate. She fell as a ring of data surrounded her form and Gigasman ate whatever the ring held. Naruto paused as the now human female slowly got up. He felt the world and time stopped as he stared at her. Another female looking oddly similar replaced her form and Naruto felt his heart race. No, he softly whispered. He quickly snapped out of it to see Gigasman slam a fist on the ground, causing a rocky avalanche to create on the mountain behind the group. With Zoe groaned as she felt bruises form before the ground started to shake. She looked behind her only for her eyes to widen as a mass of rock came tumbling her hair. She felt too weak to move despite the yell from her friends. She closed her eyes expecting to crushed. So much for finding that special one. She thought bitterly to herself as she waited to being death's cold embrace. She felt a gush of wind and her face against a clothed chest. She slowly opened her eyes to come face to face with a pair of the prettiest and deepest blue eyes she has ever seen. Connected to those eyes were a very chiseled face with a deeply whiskered cheek, 3 on each side. A pair of canine jutted out from his mouth, already adding to his feral look. Wild and spiky blonde topped his head that also covered his ears. She blushed when she realized that those eyes were also roaming her face as she was doing to him. She tried to say before she got a flash of pain. A brief look of worried appeared in his eyes before it vanished as quickly as it came. Zoe heard her friends call out for her in the background, but she paid little attention to them. Her savior carefully placed her back down on the ground and stood up to his full height. Zoe got a brief look at exotic handle of his weapon as her eyes went back to his. Hearing her name again, she looked behind her to see her group come running towards her. Turn her head to looking at the stranger only to find him gone. Her eyes widened as she looked around for him. Zoe. She heard Takuya called to her. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine, just saw. She said as she slowly got up with the help of Tommy and Takuya. He fell to his knees, too shocked to even think about where he was. There she laid, slowly dying, with an ever-present grin on her face. He slowly grabbed her head and she chuckled painfully. What's with the L long F face, my L little F fox? A bit of blood escaped her lips. He looked her fatal wound and placed his hand on it, hoping to pump his tenant's chakra into wound. We both know that's not G going to W work. She softly said as she weakly grabbed his much larger hands. The sounds of battle in the background was drowned out as they looked at each other. Feeling his face getting wet, he knew he was crying and couldn't hold back the small choked sob. And no, this can't be happening. He brought her closer to his chest. It has to be a dream. Stop being such a Barker. She grinned out before it slowly fell. She weakly reached up and placed a hand on his cheek, turning his attention to her face. Don't have much tea time and I know B broke your promise, but please don't get hung over my death. Tears slowly slipped from her eyes. He breathed deeply and shook his head. No, you are my one and only. They'll pay for what they did to you. Her smile returned. Arik no UW will be, but please find happiness after this. IW will always love you. Her hand slowly fell off his face. Outskirts of Gotsuman village. He has been following the group out of sight in the trees, gathering data on all of them as part of his mission. From what he was gathering, the ebony-haired one, called Koji, is clearly the strongest of the group. Naruto had to calm himself down before he beheaded the guy, as someone he once knew replaced Koji's spot. The second strongest and pseudo-leader, Takuya, annoyed the blonde with his all-round optimism. The Gaki obviously thinks all Digimon can be good and that evil doesn't exist. Naruto scoffed quietly from his perch. Idiots like that usually cause death to themselves or the people around them. He knew from experience. The larger one of the group, JP, irked Naruto in some way. Maybe it was his dumb ego and high arrogance, or the fact that he kept on flirting with the only female in the group. Whatever it was, Naruto wanted to slam his face in. He'll have to keep an eye on him and resist the urge to lop the fool's head off. Cherubimon wanted observed noted. Yet, the next one, Tommy, was clearly the youngest and nothing more than a boy. He was quiet and kept to himself for the most part unless spoken to. There was something off with the boy, and he kept close to the blonde-haired female, who was the only one speaking to him. And finally the person that pledged his thoughts ever since he laid his eyes on her. Zoe was like the glue that held the small group together and broke up most of the little scuffles. Every so often her form would disappear and in her place was another female. The female was little more muscular and taller due to her profession. The female would then turn up to where he was hiding and with a sweet smile, beckoning him to her. Naruto had to stop himself multiple times before he would reveal his position. This woman, Zoe, had something to do with his late love, and Naruto didn't even know how. The resemblance between the two terrified the silent blonde man. But back to the mission at hand. Naruto quickly shook those thoughts away as he saw the small group stop and stand still for a while. They talked among themselves before breaking off and venturing into different parts of the forest. With Zoe sighed quietly to herself as she picked up another piece of wood. Her thoughts quickly went to earlier events. Man, who was that guy? Is he like us? She looked up at the darkening sky as his cold and calculating face flashed into her mind. His face seemed lonely, like he was lost or something. She then cradled the sticks together as she walked back to the camp. But why does he look familiar? Zoe wasn't going to lie, he was indeed handsome in the very short time that she managed to gaze at him. Her mind then went to her detector before she sighed sadly. Needs to be the weak on again, she said bitterly before beginning to walk back to their makeshift camp. Later that night, the sun completely disappeared, allowing the moon to do its job as it bathed the forest in a dim glow. Zoe awoke with a small yawn and stretched out her aching back. The forest floor becoming more of an annoyance the more she slept it. She looked around their camp and saw that their fire had died with glowing embers in the ash. Everyone else was asleep and the forest was essentially quiet save for the few chirps of the bugs that were around. Zoe smiled faintly to herself before getting up and nursed the fire back to life. Seeing the flames engulf the remaining wood and the heat spread to her face, the blonde female looked around the forest, as if she was debating on an internal thought. She then shrugged to herself before walking into a general direction in the forest. She did this every night as she was always an explorer at heart. something that her parents often found annoying. She stopped walking and smiled sadly. I wonder what Ma and Pa are doing. I hope they are not too worried about me. She could imagine her mom having the biggest fuss ever and her dad trying but failing to calm the worried woman down. Zoe was then broken out of her thoughts by the sound of running water and she came up to a small creek. She sighed and sat at the edge looking at her reflection with the help of the moonlight. She pulled her knees up to her chest and laid her chin on them. How long have we been here? She thought to herself while taking out her detector and gazed at it. It feels like we've been here for several weeks. Yet so much shit has happened since then. A new thought pledged her min. Is there even a way out of here? Suddenly a small crack took her out of her thoughts. She quickly stood up and looked at the general direction she thought she heard the sound. Hey, is anyone there? She didn't mean to sound so afraid, but without her spirit placed her at a disadvantage if any Digimon came looking for a fight. He was watching the moon when he heard a yawn coming from the camp below him. Glancing down, he saw Zoe get up and nurse the fire before walking off in the barely lit forest. He raised an eyebrow curiously and took one more glance at the moon. He guessed it must be around midnight before silently jumping through the trees following the female. He shook head to rid of the ghost that walked next to the girl like he has been ever since he saw Zoe. However, the temptation to confront her has been growing stronger and it was only his determination to complete his mission that stopped him from doing so. He heard laughter in his head and gritted his teeth as his fist tightened. My, you have gotten pathetic. The new and very deep voice said from within his mind. How Naruto wished to remove it from his mind. Maybe he could sleep easier if the thing wasn't in with his dreams. Quick to remove me. I would shed a tear if I could. 2 rows of sharp teeth in the shape of a grin flashed in his mind and the blonde tried his best to ignore the voice. Come now, we've been over this, young one. You're stuck with me forever, bonded to my soul for eternity. Naruto took a few calming breaths as he watched Zoe sat down on the creek's bed and pull her knees up to her chest. Yet the voice wasn't done. Give it up, boy, you know better than anyone that you'll never see her again. If you die, your soul goes to Makai with the rest of the demons and monsters of the world. You'll never see her in this life or the afterlife. Shut up. It was the most emotion he's shown in a while as his fist tightened hard enough for blood to seep through his fingers. The voice chuckled softly to itself before retreating to back of Naruto's mind. Its job done for the day. Naruto felt an eye water and stuffed the idea back down as his whole form slumped. Hey, is anyone out there? Came the fearful voice of Zoe, who looked in Naruto's general direction. The troubled blonde silently cursed as he froze and blended into the darkness like his training entailed. Zoe stared at the bush he was behind for a little longer before she left to go back to her camp. Making sure that she was gone, Naruto walked out towards the creek. He looked at his reflection in the water, seeing that his eyes changed to a slightly purple tint, no doubt due to the small influence of the demon's energy. He stared at the reflection a little longer before jumping back into the trees for another restless sleep. He grunted as another kunai lodged itself into his back. He headbutted a man away before grabbing the kunai out of his back and stabbed it into another man's head. The body quickly went limp as the blood pooled into his hand and used the body as a shield before snapping another man's neck. He felt the wound heal and frown as he saw 3 men charge at him at the same time. He felt himself become more frustrated as his red eyes stared at the charging men with hatred and black energy surround his form. The men stopped running as they looked at the energy in confusion and slight fear. Of course that was a mistake, as the energy erupted and incinerated the men till ash replaced their spot. The energy disappeared and he let out a small sigh that was quickly replaced with a grunt of pain as he looked down to see a sword impaled into his stomach. He looked to see the remaining man smiling cruelly at him. "Rot in hell, you monster!" He growled ferally at the man before grabbing him by the neck thanks to his now impressive strength. He looked the scared eyes of the man and slowly pulled the sword out of his stomach without a sound. The man's eyes widen in fear and disbelief. Wait, don't me, please. The man choked out pitifully as he squirmed in his grip. I have a family. He positioned the sword at the man's stomach before looking him straight in the eye. "Rot in hell, you monster," he repeated coldly before harshly shoving the sword into the man's stomach. The man struggled as his blood pooled on the floor and life slowly drained from his eyes. He threw the dying body to the side before look at the destruction made in the small room. "Splendid, just simply amazing as usual." A high-pitched masculine voice rang out as the only door opened to reveal a white spiky-haired man, in a lab coat with two gruff-looking henchmen on either side of him. He hated this man with all the passion in his body and gripped the sword in his hand tightly. "It seemed your body is adapting to the new DNA well, it even gave you a new color and higher regenerative abilities," the man said before writing something down a clipboard. "And you finished this trial in under 5 minutes. Simply amazing." He stopped writing and looked up at his bloody figure with a smile. "In fact, I believe you're ready for the next step in the experiment." He growled and charged at the scientist with a yell. One of the henchmen tried to get in the way but found his head rolling on the floor without a second thought. He was so close to the scientist and was ready to lop off his damn head when a screeching noise slammed into head. He paused and dropped to his knees and held his ears as the noise got louder and more unbearable. He refused the urge to scream out, not wanting to give the bastard any satisfaction over his pain. He slowly lifted his head through the pain, to see the scientist giving him a cruel smile. "And I see the sound treatment is still going on strong. But let's see how much you can really take." He placed his hand in the ram sign and the sound got to the point where he swore his ears started to bleed. He felt himself go in and out of consciousness, and the last thing he saw was the smiling face of the scientist.